Here in Key West, we were out before it was in. In this open and inclusive paradise, you can be yourself, make new friends, and savor our live and let live vibe. With LGBTQ plus friendly accommodations, our legendary nightlife, and year-round activities and events, it's always a good time to come as you are. Key West, close to perfect, far from normal. Here in Key West, we were out before it was in. In this open and inclusive paradise, you can be yourself, make new friends, and savor our live and let live vibe. With LGBTQ plus friendly accommodations, our legendary nightlife, and year-round activities and events, it's always a good time to come as you are. Key West, close to perfect, far from normal.
There are heroes and there are legends. Heroes come and go. Legends never die. We usually say that you cannot become a legend before death. These are living legends. If the legends fall silent, who will teach the children of our ways? Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, brought to you by Titan Sensor, is proud to present The Legends. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sports for the next 4 seasons on Sun Coaches Podcast. Titan GPS delivers technological superiority and improved player performance through wearable GPS made for high school football and strength and conditioning. From speed training to athlete recruit to workload enhancement, Titan is the easy-to-use yet comprehensive GPS tool to get it done. There's no minimum to get started, and Titan will walk you through every step to success. Message us on X at Titan Sensor to learn more and get in touch. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, the Legends Series. And today you've got a very special guest, Coach Rayvan Teague. Thanks for being on with me.
You're welcome.
Well, Coach, I know that the high school that you went to no longer exists. It goes by another name now, but you grew up in Northwest Georgia, didn't you?
I did. I grew up in a little town, Flintstone, Georgia. Better referenced as Chattanooga Valley. So I went to Chattanooga Valley High School. It later consolidated with Rossville High School and now is Ridgeland. So
what all did you play growing up? I'm sure you didn't just play one sport back then.
No, my class, the 1980 class, was the largest graduating class ever from Chattanooga Valley. We had 120. So when you came out of there, you basically played everything. I surprisingly didn't play sports until junior high. My parents were working parents. I was raised a lot by my grandparents and actually worked, mowed yard, hauled hay, cleaned chicken houses, and did all that stuff. And so finally, as a 7th grader, I convinced my mom and dad to let me go out for baseball and football. And so football, I was, I think in the 8th grade, I was 5'6", 95 pounds. And it was my first taste of football. And back then, they didn't even have the school sponsored, even though it was junior high. You played rec football or Kiwanis ball. And my first football coach was a preacher. I can't remember. He was a Baptist preacher. Can't remember his name now. But we got introduced to Oklahoma, and I guess I didn't come off the ball very well. And so he made me get back up there. And before he said the snap of the ball, he kicked me right in the rear end and knocked me into the guy in front of me. And I kind of lost my fear of contact right off the bat because I felt like I was going to get hit worse from the back than I was from the front. So I might as well go ahead and hit people. But I didn't really understand the concept, to be honest with you. And I was small. And so I played football that year as an 8th grader. And then I played baseball in the spring. I was terrible at baseball. I either hit a home run or struck out. Most of the time I struck out. Played in the outfield. I could always run fast and did that. But I knew I loved the game of football, but I was so small. So I fell in love with the weight room and just really, really dedicated myself and changed myself. When I started high school, I was still 5'6", and I weighed 105 pounds, and I bench pressed 80 pounds. And by the time I graduated, I was 6 foot tall, 195 pounds, and bench 335. So I really changed, and I think that played a big part in how I viewed kids. I would always, whatever school I was at, I would always speak to 7th and 8th graders before spring practice and have a complete spring practice just for those guys. And I would always tell them in the meeting, I want you to be program people. I don't care where you start. It's about where you finish. I can't sit in here and say that somebody I told them myself, that's 5'6", 95 pounds, you might be a stud by the time you graduate. I just need you to stay with the program and be with me. And I would tell them about me and the weights and, always, I believe that. And I saw so many kids through the years grow and become really great players that their body changes so much from junior high to high school, especially guys. And so that was my inauspicious start. I played for a guy by the name of F.E. Brown. The story about Chattanooga Valley, when all time I was growing up, I think they went 10 years and won about 3 or 5 football games over a 10-year period before our class came into high school. But we had a really exceptional class that I was surrounded by. There were 2 middle schools. Half of Mountain View fed Chattanooga Valley, and then Chattanooga Valley Junior High fed it. And so Mountain View had went undefeated, unscored on in middle school play. And the only games we lost twice to Mountain View. So when we came together as 9th graders, we had a really good football team. And the other half of Mountain View Junior High, which was some good players too, they went to Rossville, and then Rossville had a middle school. So our freshman year, we went, I want to say, it sounds like it would be 9-1, but I can't remember if we played 8, 9, or 10 games, probably 10 games. So we were undefeated, in the last game of the year, we have to play Rossville. And the officials didn't show up, and they had parents come down out of the stands and call the game. And needless to say, they found a way to call back 3 of our touchdowns, and they ended up winning the game 7-6. And we completely went in. The coaches, before the coaches get off the field, all of us as players, this is bad to say, but we destroyed the locker room through things. We hated Rossville. And for those 2 communities to come together years later, it took a lot to get them to combine those 2 schools, and the school struggled for several years, And finally, I was so happy when Mark Mariakis, who was a college friend of mine, both went to UTC. He took them to the state championship that one year, and I was very proud of them, because it's very prideful little communities and pretty good athlete. He's followed. Oh,
UTC.
I did go to UTC, yes.
And you played ball there?
I did not. What happened coming out of high school, I was bound to determine that I was going to be a college football player. I got recruited by Carson Newman. They offered me a room and board, but my parents, I'm the first person on either side of my family to go to college, much less graduate. And to my dad, whatever it was back then, $15,000 or whatever it was for everything was just too much. And he said, you can't go. And I wasn't going to pay it. And I didn't have any money. And so I went to UTC with the intentions of walking on. When I got there and showed up, I didn't really have a lot of direction from coaches or anything. I showed up too late, so I couldn't go out that year. So I worked out for a year with the intentions of going out my sophomore year of college for spring. Well, and during this time, I was going to be an accountant. That was what my intentions was. I was always gifted in math, and I enjoyed my math and accounting classes in particular. So I went to college, was working on an accounting degree. So right before I was about to set out for spring practice, the community of Chattanooga Valley contacted me, the Kiwanians, and they said, could you coach our 11 and 12-year-old team this year? And I'm like, I don't know. And the bunch that I got, they had lost every game as 7 and 8-year-olds. They'd lost every game as 9 and 10-year-olds. They'd lost every game as 11-year-olds, and now they're 12-year-olds. And so anyway, I took the position with them, didn't go out for football, coached the guys. We won the league championship, went undefeated, won the league championship. And if I told those little 11 and 12-year-olds to run full speed into the wall, they would have broke their neck doing it. And I just had an epiphany and said, this is my calling in life, is to coach and work with kids. I just loved it. And so I went up to the university, and I changed from accounting to education. And my favorite subject in high school was history. So I changed over, said, I'm going to do secondary education history, and I'll just do a minor in math. So I wound up certified in history, math, and then my time at Clark Central, I went back to Georgia. Back then, you did an add-on, a PE add-on, and then later I went to Georgia Southern, got my master's in administration, and then I went to LMU and got my specialist in curriculum and instruction. But anyway, so my third year, I do that. So once I decided I wanted to be a football coach, I knew I needed to improve my knowledge of the game. So I walked up to the football offices at UTC and had a talk to the coaches.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. CT&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
Coach Buddy Nix was the head coach at that time. And I said, I'd like to volunteer, be a student assistant. So he let me the tight ends and special teams coach. I'm sorry, I can't even call off his name now, but he took me under his wing. And so for 1 year, my junior year in college, I worked under him and just was there all the time. Well, going into spring after that season, they had 2 graduate assistants on their staff, guys that had just graduated and played. And I'm starving. I'm in a fraternity. I take an office position in the fraternity so I can live in the house free. I try to work on the weekends at the local hardware in Chattanooga Valley and still go to school and be there for football. So they would have staff meetings at 5:30 in the morning. And I'd run from the fraternity house down there to be a part of that. And I was always there and just to be a gopher or whatever. And so after hanging out for one whole season and then being there for the preparation of spring, Coach Nix, he was a hard man. He wound up in the front office with like the New York Giants, San Francisco 49ers, and then the Chargers, I think, and then the New York Giants later on. But he scared me to death. But they're in a staff meeting and they're making plans for the season, which we had to fly to Appy State and fly to Florida State. And so he's trying to make these assignments in the staff meeting. And he turned once and said, whichever one of the GAs, he said, I need so-and-so to do this. And his supervising coach, he said, where's he at? And he said, well, he don't come in the mornings, coach. And then he had some other logistics. He called to the other guy, and that guy wasn't there. Finally, he turned and he looked square at me and Coach McGee, I think was his name. He said, every time I turn around, he's talking to me. Every time I turn around, and he cussed like crazy, like, this SOB right here is always looking at me, and he's everywhere. I can't even turn around. He says, what's your name, boy? I done been working for a whole year. I told him my name's Rayvan Teague. And he said, I tell you what, fire them 2 other SOBs, put this boy on scholarship, and I'm going to give you the logistics, and you take care of it. And I said, yes, sir. And so, because I was starving. I mean, for somebody to give me a meal ticket and to pay for my tuition. So he actually, and I wasn't a graduate, I was still undergraduate, but he paid for my, UTC paid for my 4th and 5th year of college, so that I could work with the football program and be titled a graduate assistant. They actually scholarshiped me. And I learned so much from them. I got him put in charge of recruiting. So I led all the recruiting visits to UTC. I created the Mockettes. That was the girl hostesses. That's back in the day before all that started. Got really involved, and then met the love of my life, Beth Roberts, who's now Beth Teague for the last 39 years. She was a student there, and we wanted to get married. She was graduating in 4 years, and I'd already finished up and done 1 year, and so we wanted to get married. So I thought, well, it's time to get a job. Well, because I had ran all those recruiting visits in Georgia and was from the Chattanooga area, I had 27 job interviews that year. I got offered 26 out of 27. The only job I didn't get offered, and it was Jim Miner, was at Darlington High School, and he wanted to hire me, took me to the whatever that it is there, and they told him no, because in my interview process, I guess I just wasn't refined enough as a little old boy from Chattanooga Valley to speak the Darlington language. I wasn't the academician they were looking for. So, but I had the 26 offers. I didn't know what to do. One of them was back at Chattanooga Valley for Bill Sandberg. He wanted me to be his offensive coordinator coming right out. That was then there was 2 or 3 in the Chattanooga area. Lakeview, Fort Overthorpe, I student taught, Brainerd High School, and then I had some down in Georgia. So concerned and not knowing what to do, I needed guidance. And so I got the nerve to go in and see Coach Nix one morning. I knew he always got there like at 5:30 in the morning. So I'll walk up. There's nobody else up there. Knock on his door. He said, "Come on in, Rayvan." I said, "Yes, sir." And he never looked up. I'm telling you, this guy scared me to death. He was so rough and tough. And I said, "Sir, can I talk to you?" He said, "What you need, boy?" And I said, "Well, sir, I'm leaving after this year, and I've got quite a few job offers, and I'm trying to pick the ones, the best one." I said, "I've got right here. I can be a coordinator right out the gate." And I told him something about Middle Georgia, South Georgia, and I said, I just kind of was looking for direction. He said, "I'll tell you what." He said, "Let me tell you." He said, "If you go away and get fired, you can always go home. Your ass starts at home, and you get fired, you ain't got nowhere to go." I said, "Yes, sir," and I walked out. So I understood exactly what he was telling me, create this bigger a network as you get into the business. And so I did. I took a job down in Henry County, Georgia, by the guy, his name's Kim Braswell, was the head football coach. And he had 2 coordinators that had been with him a long time, and they were really, Henry County back at that time was just Henry County and Stockbridge, and he was doing some good things. He was a kicker for Georgia. I think he held the high school record at Avondale for the most points scored or consecutive extra points in the state history. And so I thought I chose him because I thought they had a lot of potential. He had big numbers, like 100 and something in spring practice when I went down to see it. But I thought because he had those 2 older coordinators that I could move up they would get head coaching jobs and I could move up on the staff quicker. And so I chose that one. And I went down in the first year, we went 5-5. And sure enough, a guy by the name of Ron Graham, who wound up, he left and went to Central Toppleton as head coach. And Ron had actually let me scheme up the defense. We ran a 4-4, which is what we ran in high school. We ran a slanting 4-4, stunting 4-4. Everybody was 3 deep, 8-man front at that time. And so when he left, I went to Coach Braswell, and he gave me the position. So I was the defensive coordinator at 24 years of age at Henry County. We went 6-4, which was their first winning record since integration. And not speaking bad of Coach Braswell, because I appreciate everything he did for me, but I could just tell that the program, my experience at UTC, studying film, breaking it down, scouting reports, weight programs, everything else. We just, I was the only one that came in the summer and ran the summer weight program. the defense got scouting reports, but we didn't do it on offense. Just the planning and stuff. I was like, I'm not pushing myself. I'm not going to, I know I'm a coordinator, but I need exposure to be in a bigger program. And so I had worked at UTC with Johnny Henderson. Johnny played at Georgia, was a DB at Georgia, and his dad was the legendary Billy Henderson at Clark Central. And I was very ambitious, obviously. I called Johnny, and he said, "Man, your timing's impeccable." He said, Dad produced, I think Billy produced like 80-something, 89 head coaches through the years. It was a fraternity. And they had just played for the state championship three years in a row, 80, 84, 85, and 86. So this was after the 86 season. And he lost like 4 coaches. Actually, Ben Scott left. He was the offensive coordinator there, left and went to Enterprise, Alabama for spring practice. And then Coach Grisham retired, and he left after spring practice and came to Carrollton. So little did I know that I would follow him again later on. But I went over and interviewed with Coach Henderson, and he offered me the job, but he offered me, which I was only qualified for, he offered me the ends and linebackers position. So I actually took a pay cut going from coordinator. Back then, you didn't make any money in education anyway. I think I was making about $18,000 a year, but my coaching supplement was like $1,800. So my wife was making $16,000, and I was making like right at 18, 17,800. So I'm so fired up. I go interview with Coach Henderson. I take the job. We move over there in a week. I'm there every day in the summer. I'm in charge of equipment. I'm in charge of eligibility. Billy was a huge delegator. I'm in the biggest program. Valdosta and Clark Central were the 2 biggest programs in LaGrange in the state. And I get my first check, and it's not a lot of money. And so I go to check. I never even thought about asking for money. My coaching supplement at Clark Central the first year was $800. $800. So I had taken a $1,000 pay cut. I was so ashamed I couldn't even tell my wife. Billy just didn't pay well because he knew he's going to turn people over every year. And so coach for him the first.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Victory Lane? Yeah, it's even better with Chumba by my side. Race to ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
First year there, we got beat by Brookwood for the region championship. So I guess that was the second round of the state playoffs. And we lost Ronnie Royston was the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach. He left to take the Perry job. And Billy came to me and said, "Would you like to be the offensive coordinator and coach the offensive line?" I said, "Yes, sir." So I took over offense. So now I'm 26. Well, I'm going to pull it back. Just being at Clark Central and being exposed to what I had been exposed to after that first year at Clark Central at 25, I interviewed for the Taylor County head football job and was offered it. And my wife had went with me, and she was a big city girl from up in Chattanooga, and she said, "I just can't live there." And so at 25, I turned down my first head coaching job. And I was like, I may not ever get another opportunity. You don't ever know. But I wasn't ready. That was the Lord's time. And so went back to Clark Central. Second year, second round of the playoffs. And then the third year at Clark Central, 1989, we played Valdosta for the state championship, and they beat us in Death Valley there for the state championship in 89. And so I go to Coach Henderson, he's my mentor. I don't have any thing in my life professionally that I accomplished that I can attribute to Billy Henderson. It's so important to have a great mentor, and he was the greatest people person I've ever met. I think even Governor Kemp quoted Billy about 3 times in his acceptance speech when he got elected governor. He's just that kind of guy. I mean, he was just unbelievable. He would write back in the days before emails and everything else. Coach Henderson literally, he had cards on his desk, and he would write like 20 cards to people, former players, and just people, handwritten letters every day, and mail them, and just kept contact with everybody. He was just amazing. The program at Clark Central was what needed to be, duplicated or copied, and that's exactly what I did. Suck your guts up, 2 platoon, coach every level, have a spring game. The 2 platoon at all the feeder levels of 7th grade, the 8th grade, the 9th grade, the JV, and the varsity. Get as many numbers out there. Weight program year round. Incentive packages. Go to football camp. All the things that you needed to do to be successful in a quality football program was all from Clark Central. I mean, award banquets that were super, spirit packs. I mean, they were just on the cutting edge with everything, because this is in the late 80s. And so we played for the state championship, and I would take a sack lunch, and Billy always ate his lunch. Foskey made him a sack lunch, and he would always eat it in the weight room. And so, that's where his desk was in the weight room. He renovated a huge gym and turned it into a weight room there. And he had a table and a desk there, and that's where his office was. Well, I would go in there at lunchtime, and I would say, Coach, teach me something. And he said, "Oh, you just like all these other ones, all of them." He said, "When I finish this up, I'm going to write a book." And he did write a book later on. I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's a good one about his story. But he said, all these guys come through here, and they just get a chapter or two. They just get a chapter or two. And I said, "Well, Coach, I want you to give me the whole book." And so I mean, for 3 years, I mean, I ate lunch every day, and Billy would tell me stuff, and I'd ask questions, and he'd tell me stuff, and he'd tell me stuff. And so I tried to write it down and record everything I could. I kept every practice schedule, every seasonal calendar, everything, just put it back, and had a big backlog. And so I went in after we played for the state championship in '89. I'm 27. And I said, "Coach, I don't know. What's the next step?" And he said, "Well, he said, you can come back. We can win it. But other than that, you've already coordinated. You've already played for it. It's time for you to go out and do it yourself." And I said, "Are you telling me I need to go?" He said, "No, I don't want you to go, but you need to go interview. You're ready. Go interview." And so I did. I applied for Lafayette High School, which was up in the southern part of the county I grew up in. I applied for Southeast Bullock. Mr. Biggins was the principal down there at that time and was doing a great job. They were up and coming. I applied for Jenkins County. They were just building Eagles Landing High School there in Henry County. And the guy that I'd worked with was the new principal. I can't even call off his name now, something James, but too many years and too much water. So I went and interviewed for all 4 of those jobs. And the first job I interviewed for was at Lafayette with Gene Klontz, and he was great. He had played for Nick Hyder. His kids had gone through the West Rome program. He'd been there around Winslet and all those other guys as a parent and an administrator, and he knew what it took. And I'm gonna back it up just a little bit, because I think young coaches need to hear this. In 1988, after my second year at Clark, Ridgeland High School, they consolidated Rossville and Chattanooga Valley, and Ridgeland High School came open as they were going to open that school. And they had a principal by the name of Paul Chambers, who had known me since I was a kid. And man, I respected a lot. Well, so it was home, and I want to be head coach. So I go and interview, and I put together this huge package. I mean, it had the whole plan, everything in it, printed bunches of copies, gave it to him. And it came down to me and Larry Fleming. Larry had been the coach at Rossville. And Mr. Chambers called me the night before and he said, I think you're going to be a great one. But he said, I just, with the politics and everything else, I got to hire Coach Fleming. And I said, I totally understand. Well, because I had applied for that job, I'm sitting about a month later, and Gene Klontz, the principal at Lafayette, calls me and says, hey, I saw where you've applied. Are you wanting to come back to this area? And I said, well, I wanted to be the head coach at Richland. And he says, well, I've got a coach. This was my first year here. And I've got an old coach that I'm going to force into retirement after this coming season, because I really want to turn this thing around. And I see where you've been at Clark Central. Would you be interested in coming up here and being his top assistant? And then when he retires, I'll give you the job. And I said, I really appreciate it. But I said, I don't think that's right. I don't think I should come in to be there for somebody that's going to get replaced. I think if you work for a person, if I'm good enough, he should be successful and you not want to replace him. So I said, if you ever have a head coaching opportunity, please call me. And so went back, we played for the state championship. And as soon as the season was over, he fired the guy or forced him into retirement. He called me. And so at 27, I go up there, and I think Lafayette had been 2-8, 0-10, and 1-9 the 3 years. They didn't have a winning record in any sport that year, but it was home. And my experience when I was growing up, Lafayette, they always had players. If their name was Swapshire or Suttles, they were studs. They were playing college ball and everything else. That's all I remembered. And so he was my first interview, and he offered me the job, but he said, I got to go. I was his first interview, and he said, but I got to go through the process. He said, if you'll hold your water, when I finish the process, I'm going to give you the job. And I said, well, I'm going to continue the interview. And so I went to Eagles Landing, and Mr. James offered me the job, and you got a chance to build a school there. And then Biggins down at Southeast Bullock, he said, you're going to be one of my 2 finalists in 2 weeks. And then I can't even remember Jenkins County. It seemed like they were interested, but I wasn't interested after I went there. And so I set on the fact that I was going to be the head coach at Lafayette. I decided that's the one I wanted. I had to be quiet for a month, and then he hired me. So at 27, green, crazy, I go to Lafayette, Georgia to be the athletic director and head football coach. And I'm going to do it the Billy way. Everything goes through football. We're going to maximize the school athletes, the whole 9 yards. So I tell Mr. Klontz, I said, so I'm going to be the athletic director too? And he said, yeah. They had never raised any money. I said, well, what's the worst program at the school? And he says, girls track. He said, Rayvan, for the last 2 years, they haven't finished in front of anybody in any meet. If they went to an invitational, they came in dead last. And I said, well, I want to be the head girls track coach and the head football coach and the athletic director. Me and Ken Chandler, the defensive coordinator at Clark, we had just won the boys state track championship at Clark Central. And so Brady Sigler and some of those great ones had come through and taught us track. I thought I knew a lot about track.
Drew McIntyre here from WWE. Wielding the Claymore can be a life of chaos. When I'm not dominating in the ring, Chumba Casino is how this warrior takes a wee break. With hundreds of online social games and new weekly releases, there's always something fresh to try. And those daily boosts, next level. Even my free time feels like Valhalla. So when life feels like a battle, kick up your feet, have some fun, and let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T's and C's. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
So a sidebar before I ever get to the football, I took over the girls track team. The first year we went 500 and came in third in 2 invitationals. And then the second year we won the region championship and finished 5th in the state. And I handed it off to my assistant. I just wanted them to prove that they could win. It was just all about programming. And so anyway, I took over a football program, and it was incredible, the response we got. Now, I brought 2 C-team coaches. I taught 2 young coaches off of the Clark Central staff. They were the 8th grade coaches, and made one my offensive coordinator, one my defensive coordinator. I lost everybody on the staff up there except for 3 guys that stayed over. I called my first staff meeting at 5:30 in the morning, I mean, they had to think I was crazy. These guys are all in their 50s. There were some of them in their 30s. And I called a staff meeting at 5:30 in the morning. And I said, we're going to rip out all of this. We're going to paint these walls. We're going to build these lockers. We're going to, we got weights 5 times a week in the summer. You'll have to be here, here, and here. Da, da, da. I mean, I had everything planned out, a massive schedule, how it would be in the season, 7 days a week, da, da, da. So I leave the staff meeting at 5:45. The offensive coordinator came up to me. I'm not going to mention names but he's like, man, I like everything you're going to do, but I've had 3 hernia operations. I don't think I'm going to be able to tear out and move lockers and stuff. And I said, well, if you're not physically fit enough to do work, you're probably not physically fit enough to coach. So he resigned. Then the defense coordinator came to me and said, man, I like everything you're doing, but me and my wife, we cook meals at the country club in the summer. That's our side gig. I won't be able to come to summer weights. I'm like, well, it's non-negotiable. If you can't come to summer weights, you won't be able to work here. He resigned. And so I went through the whole staff, and then I made a policy as athletic director in order to coach, be the head coach of another boys' sport there, you had to be involved in the football program because I wanted to maximize the school's athletes and run it all through the weight program. I took over the weight program. I was probably the most experienced of everybody, so I coached my own offensive line and called the plays, and I coached the secondary. And me and the guy I brought with me coordinated the defense together. So we went out the gate. We went 7-3. We lost to West Rome in the sub-region 13-7 and finished second. So back then you had the region playoffs. Well, on the other side of the in the south part of the region was Pepperell, and that was Lynn Honeycutt's undefeated state championship team, 1990. And so they'd won every game. We were 7-3. We went down there that night, and going with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, we were up 13-7, and whichever one, they had Irving and Fryer or somebody, the 2 guys that played in the NFL for a long time. One of them broke off a long run, and they beat us in the last second, and beat us 14-13, and then they went on to win the state championship game like 48-6 that year. Really close. So then my second year, we went 8-2, and again West Rome. That was Sid Spruill. Sam Spruill. They beat us 13-7 again. I couldn't stop the Sally play. They scored twice on the Sally, and so we finished second again. Well, on the other side, in the sub-region was an undefeated Cartersville team. That was Earwood. It was Earwood. Earwood was there, Mike Earwood. And they won the state championship. They go, well, we took the Lafayette team on the road down there that year, and they crossed the 50 one time and scored a touchdown. We were inside their 40 4 times and only got a field goal. We lost 7-3, and they won the state championship like 42-13. So we were just so close those first 2 years, but we matched up with the state champions in the first round. My third year at Lafayette High School, it balances on a razor blade. You have very minimal athletes and 2 or 3 kids that are studs. They make the difference between going 8-2 and 2-8. I mean, how they do. And everybody got hurt. I mean, I had big Shannon Suttles that ended up going to Auburn. I lost during the course of the year, to tell you how many people that went down. The next year coming back, I had 27 returning starters because we had played so many people to replace in. So I had more than 22 starters. I had 27 guys that had started multiple, at least 3 or 4 games because we played. So, but that third year, everybody got hurt. We went 3-6-1. It's the only time as a player or a coach I ever was involved in a losing season. I lost 20 pounds. If my little girl, Laurel, hadn't have been a cute little 3-year-old that would run up and grab her daddy's leg when I came home defeated from practice, I'd have probably not made it. But She did. I didn't know how to lose. I've heard people talk about the hardest they've ever worked is during their losing season, and I totally agree with that. I did the best job I could do. We all did. Everybody on staff worked hard hours, never let up. The kids never let up. But we lost. We were 3-6-1. We tied Ridgeland. Of those 6 games we lost, 4 of those games we were winning with less than 5 minutes to go, and the other team scored and beat us. So, I mean, we were that close to 7-2-1, but we were 3-6-1. Well, anyway, that set us all on fire. I had 27 returning starters, and I killed them in the offseason. And that next year, the preseason, Cartersville was ranked. We were back. Now we're playing a complete region schedule. You had to play a complete region schedule. Cartersville was preseason number 1. Pepperell was preseason number 2, and Villa Rica was preseason number 3. And that's our region. West Rome's gone now.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, and Bohan was at Villa Rica. They were good, So I think it was the 4th or 5th game of the year. We won our first 3 games. We go to Cartersville, and they beat us like 13-10. Well, the next week was our open week. Pepperell played Cartersville, and Pepperell beat. That's when they had that big running back. Pepperell had that Brandon Young or something. I can't remember that gigantic 6'3", 255-pound running back. Honeycutt had their offensive line average about 300 pounds. They were all about 6'6". They beat. I go to the game that night. My wife is due at any time, and Pepperell beats Cartersville, and so that was our open week. We have to play Pepperell the next week. My son's born on the Friday night of open week, like a good coach's wife would do, because I would have had to miss it if I'd have been coaching. I have a substitute coach, So we had the baby right after that game. I ran home. I came back, and she went into labor that night, and so we do the open week, and we play Pepperell. They're the number 1 team in the state. They come to Lafayette, Georgia, and we upset them. We beat them. I want to say 17-7. Shut him down. We go on, win the rest of the game. In the 10th game of the year, we play Villa Rica. We go down to Villa Rica. Bohan, I think they're still ranked in the top 10, and we're beating them 28-0 with about 3 minutes to go. Well, part of my little special teams things that I've always done, like extra points, it was on the kids to jab or to fake. If people weren't in the right spot, they had the right way to call jab or whatever and go for 2, just hit it. And the same thing on my punting, all my punting teams, they had the option, if the people weren't right in the box or to the right side or to the left side, they could call a fake punt, And so it's 28-0, 3 minutes to go. They stop us. We're on our 40-yard line. It's 4th down and 8. And I'm not thinking nothing about it. Well, my punting unit, they see something, call the fake punt, go 60 yards to score to beat them 35-0. That's on Frank Bohan's top 10 ranked team. He didn't take that too kindly.
I was about to say, I bet Coach Bohan lost his mind.
He did. Well, here's the kicker to that story. So you still have region playoffs. So I win. We go do a coin flip. Me and Earwood and Honeycutt. I win the coin toss because all 3 of us go 9-1. Okay, and Bohan goes. He goes 7-3 because he loses to all 3 of us. So he's 4th. So in the next week, who do I play in Lafayette, Georgia? Villa Rica. And they were ready to play. And my guys had just beat them 35-0. So they beat us, I think it was 17-14.
Oh, no.
And so I go 9-2 my last year. And then the Swainsboro job came open. I'd never been to Swainsboro in my life. I just knew that I could do a great job at Lafayette, but I didn't know if we could ever win a state championship. And
nobody's won there since.
No, I know. I hate that for them, But
hey, it's Bubba Wallace from 2311 Racing. You know what feels like forever? Sitting on a plane waiting for takeoff. Good thing I've got Chumba Casino. With daily boost and social casino games on tap, this is the kind of fun that makes time fly. Why not turbocharge your downtime? Play now at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I just knew that. I mean, I love the people. They're my people. I mean, they're blue collar. Just hillbillies, just like I was and how I was raised. And I just knew I couldn't win. I could do a great job and probably average 7 wins a year for a career. Maybe might win 200 games. And I was driven by numbers. Now, I'm not saying I'm, a little bit of a narcissist when it comes to that. I'm definitely driven, self-driven. And so I wanted to win 200 games, but I was hoping that maybe I could win a state championship somewhere along the line. And so there was a traveling salesman for the Neff company, Craig Hartman. I'd actually roamed. They were consolidating Rome, and I'd interviewed for the Rome job. And that's when who's the guy from LaGrange that came up and got the first time at Rome, got the job?
Sam Pickens.
No, the one before him, Guthrie. Wasn't it Guthrie?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Coach Guthrie. Yeah.
Well, so it came down to me and Guthrie for the job, and they picked Guthrie. So I went back to my office, was sitting there thinking, well, I guess I'm going to be back at Lafayette. And Craig Hartman comes through, and he said, hey, have you ever seen Swainsboro, Georgia? And I'm like, I saw it on a road sign on my way to Florida one time. He said, well, they got an old man down there, Coach Schofield, that's won 200 games, and he's retiring. And he said they're fixing to build this gigantic stadium and everything else. And, they always go, he said they always go 6-4, 7-3, 8-2, and they lose in the first round of the playoffs because it's a basketball school. And once the ball starts bouncing, they're through with football. He said, but they got all kinds of great talent. He said, you ought to call them. So just out of the blue, this was on a Friday afternoon. I called down there and called the principal, Mr. Davis, and he said, well, sir, the superintendent's running this. He said, you have to talk to Betty Brown. Well, I called Dr. Brown, great lady, great leader, visionary. She and I have an instantaneous rapport and talked for about 45 minutes on the phone. And she said, well, actually, we're down to the final 4, and we're bringing everybody in tomorrow, and we've got a panel they're going to interview with. She said, would you come on down? I'll put you up at the Coleman Inn and make it a final 5. I said, well, I guess so. So I go home, tell my wife, we load up the car, we drive to Swainsboro. It's dark, so don't really even see the town. Go to the board office the next morning, interview, get back home on Sunday. So I haven't been in the high school. I haven't met anybody because I always do research. I go to the rec program. I do all of it. I mean, it's bam, bam, bam. And the Lord always works that way in my life. When he wants to move me, he moves me in just a second. And so she calls me Sunday afternoon and she said, I want to make you our next football coach, and we'll have the board meeting tomorrow night, Monday night. Would you take the job? And I said, well, can I call you back in about an hour? Talk to my wife. My wife's crying because she's from Chattanooga. I'm from Chattanooga area. We're up here, and we're fixing to move 5 hours or 3.5. We have about 5 hours down to Swainsboro, Georgia, in the middle of nowhere where she knows nobody. But she said, if that's what you believe, then let's do it. So I drive down there Monday, and they approved me that night. I hadn't talked to money about her with her. I didn't even know what I was going to be making. And took the job. Well, I didn't know it, but Coach Schofield had kind of promised the job to his offensive coordinator. And if you're going to be at Dodge County, you're going to know a great guy. He wound up the principal down. He was football coach, became the head coach, and anyway,
Rex
so
Hodges.
Who?
Rex Hodges.
Rex Hodges, that's it. Rex had been promised the job, but Rex is good people now. He's really good people. So Mr. Davis and the other assistant principal, Miss Stokes, and Coach Schofield, they'd all come in together, and their promise was they were all going to leave together. Well, when Coach Schofield they basically he decided to retire. Dr. Brown, maybe it kind of helped him. He decided to retire. Miss Stokes and Mr. Davis wasn't happy about it because they were still going to stay there. So I wind up going to Swainsboro. Don't know any of these dynamics. And to say that, and then Mr. Davis, when I get there, he said, well, we're going to have 2 teaching openings. We're going to have 2 openings. Here's 3 names that I'm going to interview. You can pick 2 of them to coach with you. And then I inherited the rest of the staff. So that was unusual to say the least. I'm coming in with my way of doing things, but I left Rex as offense coordinator. He did a great job. We did have talent, but I changed everything. I went to the power eye. Well, the first year I didn't. I let Rex run it. I ran my 50 defense. I ran defense. He ran offense. And I think we went 8-3 that first year. And then I helped Rex get a head coaching job. And then I took over the offense. We went into the power eye and we had a great experience there. But for the first 3 months on the job down there, I didn't dare tell my wife because she hadn't moved down there yet. But nobody talked to me. I didn't talk to nobody. I ate alone. I worked alone. I wasn't welcome there, to say the least. But it all worked out in the end. And then 8 years later, when we leave, my wife, we stay up all night with our closest friends, and she cries all the way up to Carrollton. Because they were just great people, and the community was great to us, and we had great players, and the 2000 team, obviously state champions, just super. I slowly built my staff up, hired Robbie Robinson. He was a big part of that. Chuck Moore. Chuck was at Clark Central, brought him down. Robbie had been a head coach at Pike County and Jackson, brought him in. Robbie brought the slanting 50 defense with. I wanted to run the 50 and stay with it, but Robbie wanted to move it, and that was great for our kids. We stayed in the power eye, just like Clark, and just powered our way through. And that bunch in 2000 was a very, very special bunch. In fact, in 99, the year before, we went well, a little back. I'm going to take it back a little bit. Story before that. So here I am. I was the head coach at Lafayette for 4 years. We went to the playoffs 3 times, lost in the first round, twice as state champions. Go down to Swainsboro. We make the playoffs the first 5 years and lose in the first round every time. So I've been a head coach now 10 years or 9 years, and I've been in the playoffs 8 times and lost in the first round. And I'm at an all-star selection thing, and Rick Tomlin took me to breakfast, and we're sitting there. I spent time. I mean, Larry Campbell. I made it a point as a young coach to go get around every legendary coach I could find and spend time with them. I mean, all of them. Nick Hyder, you can't, Dan Pitts, whoever. I would just go. If I got Coach Chappell at Dalton when I was at Lafayette, when we get beat in the playoffs, I would go to his practices, and he brought me in. He was awesome. So every 300 winner, just about, as funny as life is to you, probably the only legendary coach that I never had a one-on-one with was Coach Grisham, Charlie Grisham. And I wind up having to follow the legend up here. And I was like, man, if I'd have known, I tell his children all the time, still to this day, had I known that I was going to be at Carrollton, I promise you, I would have spent hours with your daddy. A coach in the stadium with his name on it and his face on the wall. But anyway, Rick took me to breakfast, and I'm like, he's like, you're doing a great job. Of course, Washington County was all that and a bag of chips, and he was winning. And I said, I don't know, man. I said, I think I'm doing everything right. We were doing bigger, faster. I said, but I can't win a playoff game. And he said, same thing happened with me. He said, here's what's going to happen. One day you're going to win a playoff game, and the next thing you know, you're going to be playing for a state championship. He said, because game 11 is just as hard as game 15. And that made sense to me because I'd played state champions and was right there with them, even at Lafayette. And I'd done it at Swainsboro too. So sure enough, after that conversation, a year later, 99, I guess it was, our first playoff game was against Americas. We always, I mean, if you're in South Georgia, obviously you're going to play a great team in the first round. We played Americas. That's Coach Soliday, and they had that Pope kid, Leonard Pope, or isn't that what's his name?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, how in the world? I think I can't remember who we were in the region with, but I'm like, how in the world is this a first round matchup? These guys are incredible. He's slinging it all over the place. Well, we beat them that night. I was ecstatic, like I'd won a state championship because we won our first playoff game. Well, then we won the next game, and then so then we're in game 13. So now we're 12-0 in game 13. Hart County, Coach Devane comes down, and they're loaded, and they beat us like, I don't know, 17-14 or 17-7 in game 13. And then they lose to Cartersville, I think, for the state championship when they had Ronnie Brown. So we were just that close. Well, we go to spring practice, and I had 20 out of 22 starters coming back. That was a young team.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
And everybody, all the college coaches, because I had a lot of great players, they were all at spring practice. And the first day of spring practice, I went home, and I've always been a little bit of a Vince Dooley. And my wife said, "Well, how was spring practice?" And I said, "It was scary. It's scary." I said, "It's almost like we didn't leave the field." I said, "We're unbelievably good." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, you're going to win a state championship." This is my wife at the first day of spring practice, because I don't talk like that. And I said, "I don't know, we might." And sure enough, we hit the run that year. Our defense, Coach Robinson did a great job. You know, we only gave up. We had 4 shutouts in 5 games that year in the playoffs. Only one team scored. One, and that's because in game 13, Hart County had beat us the year before in game 13 and put that bunch out. Well, we go to Hartwell, and they're undefeated. And Brandon Andrews, who's now the principal at Swainsboro, Dr. Brandon Andrews, he went wild. He had 250 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns in the first half. We beat them 48-6. So that was the 6 points that we gave up in the playoffs. We pitched a shutout in the state championship, the first round, second round, third round, and in the state championship game. And those kids were just unbelievable. It's the only state championship in Swainsboro history, and just a special group. Just glad that we were there with them. And so off of that, I lose. Chuck gets a head coaching job. Robbie gets a head coaching job. I stay on. I hired a guy, Shane Williamson, who's now the superintendent in Pike County, I guess. But Shane followed me at Swainsboro. I hired him, brought him in from Tifton, and we went, I think we got beat in the second round by Washington County in 2001. And another backstory, I know I always keep backing up on you. In 99, after that 12-1 team, Ben Scott passed away. And Ben, Clark Central, all of his staff was from Clark Central. When he passed away, I mean, I had circles around about 4 jobs in Northwest Georgia that I thought you could win a state championship at. And of course, Carrollton was right there at the top of the list. I mean, you had Dalton, Cedartown, Carrollton, Calhoun, Cartersville. So it was about 5 of them. And Ben died. So I applied for the Carrollton job. This is in 99 now, after 12-1, and made it and was in the Final Four. But they were like, I mean, Jeff Herron, Theo Caldwell. They were just some great. I mean, I had no business being in that, but the night they ended up hiring Ross New. Kind of come out of left field with that one. I knew that I was going to be one of the top 4 picks, if not the pick. And the whole time I'm interviewing and coming back, I'm like, state championships are never promised. And I probably got a state championship team coming back. And how am I going to turn down Carrollton and possibly lose out on being a part of a state championship? Contemplating that, but I knew I wouldn't turn down Carrollton. Well, end up superintendent calls me the night before the board meeting and says, we're going to go with Ross New. Very impressed with you. His name was Ronnie Williamson, was the superintendent at that time. And so I didn't get it. Again, that's the Lord's hand. I go back to Swainsboro, and we win the state championship. And then in 2001, we got beat in the second round. Well, Ross lasted 2 years. And so when the season ended after 2001, I get this letter from the superintendent of Carrollton City Schools. It was a guy named Tom Wilson. Mr. Wilson says, we are looking for high quality. We're only sending out about 10 letters to people we think that are qualified for a position such as this. I mean, they're very proud of themselves up here now, and they should be. Between Coach Scott, Coach Grisham, and Coach Maddox, those three guys, I told when we redid the field house while I was up here, we did brick art on the side of the building. It says tradition never graduates. I kind of themed that, put that in. But not many people go to work every day with their three former coaches on the side of the building, face on the side of the building. It's a little intimidating at times. So the tradition is rich. But anyway, the letter came to my office and said, you're one of the 10 people we identified, and we'd like for you to come interview with us, apply for the job and interview with us. Well, I knew the principal at the time, Keith Smith. And so I called Keith and I said, what's the deal with this letter? And he said, oh, we're searching. And I said, well, Keith, I came up there last time and, I said, I didn't think I was the best person, but I didn't think the job went to the best person. So I didn't think it was a true process. I said, I just wanted to stay. I was assistant principal at Swainsboro at that time, assistant principal, athletic director, head football coach, second in charge. And, could stay there for as long as I wanted to. Had it licked and know I was going to always win there. And I said, I've got a lot of, I've been very blessed here. I don't want to come up for another false interview. He said, no, I promise you, it's legit. It's legit. And I said, well, I don't know. I'll think about it. Hung up the phone. Within 30 minutes, Tom Wilson, the superintendent, calls me. And he said, Coach, I want to assure you, I wasn't here when all the process went by the first time, but I promise you that this is legit. If we didn't think that you were qualified, we wouldn't have sent you a letter. And I would appreciate it if you would come interview with us. So that was on a Friday. And so that was on a Thursday. And so the interview started on Friday. And so my wife and I and the kids, we said we were going to go to Chattanooga and stay with my parents anyway. So we drove to Carrollton, Georgia. She dropped me off. And I interviewed with Smith and Wilson and some board members for 3 hours. It was a 3-hour interview. He was in the process. He had interviewed about 4 or 5 people already. I think he decided he was going to interview 5 people. He interviewed 3 people. He had one more guy coming in the next day after me. And after 3 hours, I could tell because he called the chairman of the board and had him come up there, Dr. Pope, who just passed away recently, and said, had me talk with him. So I knew he was super interested in me. And he said, well, Coach, we got to get your family up here. And I said, well, my family is here. And he says, where they at? And I said, they're out there in the car. my wife and kids had been in the car. They went around Carrollton for a little while, but they were sitting for 3 hours. They were out there. He's like, you're kidding me. I'm like, no. So he goes out there and meets the family. And so I leave that Friday afternoon. I leave, go up to Chattanooga. On Saturday morning, he called me and he said, Coach, I want you to be I told you the Lord moves quick with me. It just happens that way. He said, we would like for you to be our head football coach. And if we offer you a job, I'll pay X amount. And I mean, it was so much more than I'd ever thought about making. And he said, but he said, there's going to be 2 of you I got to put in front of the board. But I want you to be, I'm telling you that I think I want you to be my football coach. I'm pretty sure that you're the guy. And he said, you are the guy, and I'll pay this and this. Are you interested? I said, yes, sir. And so I had to come back on Monday again, just like that. So we drove back to Swainsboro with my family because Beth had to go to work and the kids had to go to school. I drove back on Sunday, drove up there on Monday night. On my way up, I'm thinking, I wonder who the other person is. I know we got to sit in front of the board members and everything else. And then I guess the following week, he said we were going to sit in front of the board on Monday night. Then he'd have a called meeting on Thursday night and name the coach. So I'm about halfway from Swainsboro to Carrollton, and Mr. Wilson calls me and he says, Coach, you ready to be our football coach? And I said, well, you're sounding awful confident. I guess if I do good in front of the board, beat out the other guy. And he said, there's nobody else coming tonight. You're going to meet the board, and we're going to make you our coach tonight at the board meeting. And I'm like, yes, sir. I called my wife. I'm like, you better be ready to move. We're going to Carrollton. And so got the job at Carrollton. Unbelievable. I mean, how blessed this community. I mean, they do it right. It's excellence. It's the 3 A's. It's the excellence in academics, arts, and athletics, and they don't short you of nothing. The community support, the school system, all geared for success in everything. And we were very, fundraising's always been part of my deal, but we did $11.5 million worth of athletic acquisitions while I was here, from field houses to stadiums to everything you can imagine. It was just an awesome time, an awesome run. We never did punch the ticket. We played for it in 2010, and 2013. And so 12 years. I think we were blessed to win like 128 games in 12 years. So basically right at 13 games a year for 12 years. Unbelievable. Definitely the lich part of my thing. Well, I had never entertained Colquitt County and Valdosta. Sometimes those jobs would come open and you get a call to interview. And I knew I wanted to retire from Carrollton, Georgia. I was a Trojan for life. Once I got here, my kids were in school here. And I never went and interviewed anywhere. Well, after the 2013 game, I had actually engaged.
Bubba Wallace here from 2311 Racing. You know what's slower than a pace car? Waiting at the car wash. That's when I fire up Chumba Casino. It turns those slow minutes into fast fun. With new games every week, you'll never get bored. Next time you're stuck in the slow lane, speed up with Chumba. Play now at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
In 14, I was 51, and I thought I had 29 years of service. So my son he was a sophomore, my youngest, and so he had 2 boys. So I figured, well, I'll work 31 years. And then at 53, I need to retire. Coach Henderson always said the best part of education is the back end. And as soon as you can, you need to double dip. You need to go to private school, go to another state, or go to college, whatever. So Billy Henderson, if he said it, it was the gospel to me. So I found myself, we had just beat Marist in game 14 in 8 overtimes. And we had done all the preparation. Everybody was going home that night, on Sunday night. And I sat at my computer and I looked up TRS and actually booked a retirement session with them. I wanted to go to see what my salary would be as a retiree, what I qualified for after next year, after the following year, because obviously I wasn't going to be able to retire and not do anything. I had to retire and get another job. And I'm a math guy. So I wanted to get a head start on it. So we played for the state. So I'd set it up for January the 6th. We played for the state championship, and we lose to Griffin. And we had 2 days of post planning that occurred after the game, Monday and Tuesday. Well, on Monday morning, the principal, Dr. Albertus, who's now the superintendent here, he came down to the field house in my office. He never came to my office. And he was kind of being fidgety, which is not like him. He's pretty direct. And I'm like, sir, do you need to see me about something? I'm thinking, he going to fire me for losing the state championship game, which is possible at Carrollton now. Don't think it's not. And I'm like, what the heck? And he said, Coach, the rumor mill is that you're thinking about retiring. And I'm like, I hadn't told a soul. I just set up an appointment with TRS. I still don't know how that got out. Nobody knew. Me and my wife, that's the only two people. She would tell nobody. I'm thinking, how did that? I don't know if somebody from TRS or whatever. And I said, well, I never lie, Dr. Albertus. I said, I'm got a meeting with TRS to see what my retirement's going to be after next year. I said, not saying that I'll retire after next year. I'll probably go 2 more years because my sons just will be graduating. He said, well, it would be a big deal. And we want you to be our football coach forever. But if you ever think about doing something like that, you got to give me a heads up. And I'm like, yes, sir, I sure will. Well, I went home that night and talking to my wife, and I said, he came to me and said all that. And I said, well, I got to thinking, I can't retire unless I have a quality job. I mean, I've got to really double dip or whatever. And I said, so I really need to explore what my options will be a year from now. And so we go on Christmas. The next day we come back in and I asked to see him. He said, yeah. And I said, well, I don't know what TRS is going to tell me, but I think I got another year. But I told him the same story. I said, I've never interviewed. I'm a Trojan till I die, but I know that I'll have to work again. So I would like to explore some options, over the next month or so. And so I would make an informed decision. He said, well, I can't tell you not to talk to anybody, but it better be confidential because it can't get out. And I said, yes, sir. Well, I end up word of mouth gets around quick or something. Chattanooga Christian called me and I went up and interviewed with them and they offered me the AD football job up there. And it was really, really good money. And then Mr. Wilson had already retired and went to South Carolina. Somehow he got wind of it, called me. He said, I've got 2 high schools in my system. I'm going to hire 2 ADs, full-time AD assistant principals, and 2-time football coaches, 2 head football coaches. You can come up here and interview with me and you can be any of the 4. And I'm like, well, I don't know. And so I went up and interviewed with him and he said, I'll pay you whatever it takes. And I said, well, if I leave Carrollton, I don't really want to coach again. I think it's so collegiate to go try to start a new program. It just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like be right for me to leave those kids to coach again. I said, I've been an assistant principal before, and I've been an AD for the whole time I've been head coach for 29 years or whatever, 24 years. I've been 24 years as head coach. I said, I'd always wanted to go. They have T.L. Hanna, which is a lot like Carrollton, and they have Westside, which is kind of an inner city minority school. And I said, I want to tell you what. I said, in my mind, there's been a part of me that always wanted to go to an inner city school and give them everything that the big time programs have to see how they do and how they respond and give them that opportunity. Nutrition, weights, quality coaches, great facilities, it was a pigsty. And I said, so if I do come, I want to be the athletic director at Westside High School. And he said, you could have it. And he told me how much I was going to make. And it was really nice. Well, we come back, and on the 6th, I go meet with TRS. And he says, well, because I was on 12 months for so many years as an administrator and AD and everything, they said, you really have 31. I know you've only done 29, but you actually have 31 years of experience. You can retire right now. And I said, well, what would be the difference, my take home, if I retire versus my take home right now? And they said $24,000. I said, so I can retire and I'll only bring home $24,000 less than what I do right now. He said, yeah. I said, I could be a greeter at Walmart for $24,000. and then I got the number that the superintendent has thrown at me in my head, and Chattanooga Christian. And bottom line, is
you're a math guy. That's the bottom line.
For me to retire and leave Carrollton and double dip was a $70,000 a year raise. $70,000. Now, anybody in education knows that kind of money don't come around for educators like that. And so it was a no-brainer. I said, I told my wife, I don't want to leave Carrollton. I don't want to retire. I mean, we just played for the state championship and we're going to be really good 2 years from now, So I prayed about it, went in and saw Dr. Albertus and said, I'm going to retire
today.
So and I announced it to the team that same day, and we loaded up and went to Anderson, and it was a great stay. I stayed over there 8 years. We did $12.5 million worth of athletic acquisitions. I mean, Mr. Wilson's a builder and could find the money. We gave him everything. I hired Coach Earl. He's now the president of the South Carolina Coaches Association. That's a full-time position over there, like the GACA is full-time and everything. And so when I retired 2 years ago, he took over he left and went there. But long story short, we went in there. We gave them everything. They had not been very good at anything. We won 2 girls' state championships in basketball. The football team won the state championship and state runner-up. Every sport, we flipped every one of them, and those kids responded so well. I had a great administration with me. We took the graduation rate from 68% up to 89% in that 8-year period. It was very, very rewarding, second career-wise, and I would have stayed another 2 years, but 2 years ago, or now 2.5 years ago, my daughter had our first grandbaby. Or 4.5 years ago, my daughter had our first grandbaby, and we were living on the Lake Hartwell. And my wife said, my daughter moved back to Carrollton. She said, I'm going to Carrollton to be a full-time grandmama. You coming with me? And I said, no, I don't know. So I worked for 2. She moved back to Carrollton. We bought a home over here. I live with my golf coach over there. We drive home every weekend. And I did that for 2 years. I probably should have done 2 more to maximize, to get to Social Security. But I retired over there at age 60, and I've just been back at Carrollton and enjoying every moment of life. I love being back. Joey King, who's the head coach here, great coach. I told him when I was leaving that's who they needed to hire. They didn't hire him. He went to Cartersville and coached Sunshine and won all those state championships. But I told him at the time, I said, if you hire Joey King, he'll win more games than Coach Maddox, Coach Grisham, Coach Scott, and Coach Teague ever thought about winning. And he's already won. He's the hottest coach, 100-something game in the shortest period of time. He's a great coach. The staff that we've got here is probably at least half of them either played for me or coached with me here. Just love being a part. I keep my arm's length. I only go when I'm asked. I do mentor program. I'm a mentor in the program. I started that when I was here as a coach, and just enjoy being there and being a resource, but not the source. I have no intention of ever working again or ever being the source again.
Well, Coach, over the years, who are some of the guys that you enjoyed competing against and coaching against and looking across the field, and whether they beat your tail or you tore them up? Who were some guys that you just enjoyed building relationships with over the years?
Yep. Well, I was fortunate enough to play against some really, really great coaches. And, of course, Steve Pardue, that's my buddy. Everybody thought we'd go to clinics and hang out in the hospitality room and argue like we hated each other. Everybody thought we hated each other, but we really best buddies and enjoyed each other's company a lot. We were just a great rivalry. He beat me. He beat me at least 2 times in game 13 and went on to win the state championship here. I think he beat me. I beat him in Swainsboro in game 12 of that state championship year. So I was 1-0 against him. I come to Carrollton and I think he beats me 3 or 4 times or maybe 5 times. So I was 1-5. And then at the end, when I had that run, 2010, 11, 12, 13, I think I ended up beating him about 3 times. And so he still had a winning record against me, but it was great competition. I think he won the series maybe 5-4 or whatever. Chip Walker owns me. I couldn't beat Sandy Creek. I mean, they were our nemesis here at Carrollton. When he was winning those state championships, he was beating us in the playoffs or for region championships. He did a great job. Coach Walker was at Peach County when I was at Swainsboro, and he came to one night. I think they were ranked number 1 in the state. It was my first year at Swainsboro. Swainsboro, they don't even read. They did, at that time, they didn't have the internet, so they didn't even read the newspapers down there. Those kids didn't know anybody. I mean, I think Peach County had just tied for the state championship the year before. Rodney gets there. They're loaded. They come rolling into Swainsboro. Our kids are out there throwing footballs, running between them when they're trying to walk the field. And, I mean, we opened a whipping on them. We beat them like 42-6. And Rodney went crazy and got kicked out of the game. And then we went to Peach the next year, and I think they beat us like 13-7. So that was a good series. Coach William Devane at Hart County, he was a good one. Like I told you, Lynn Huncutt, Frank Barden, Coach Earwood, Bohan. Bohan came when I was at Carrollton. He came to Haralson County for a while. We played. Now Haralson County they have not ever beaten Carrollton in the history of the school. So, I mean, it was that. But one night I caught the swine flu and you still got a coach. I had like 103 fever. I didn't go on the bus. I drove a car and then coached the game. And it was about 38 degrees and raining. And and Bohan knew I had the swine flu. And I think with about 2 minutes and something to go in the game, we're beating them like 42-0. He calls 3 timeouts in a row, so I have to stand out there in the rain longer, shivering.
That fake punt came back to get you.
Yeah. So, Frank, I mean, he was laughing the whole time. I'm like, this crap ain't funny. I could die out here. You're making me stand in the rain, the pouring around rain. He's like, that's what you get. That's what you get. So, all of those, Rick Tomberlin, of course, we had some wars. I think one of the first region championships that won at Swainsboro, we played Washington County in game 8 or 9 for the region championship and beat them at our place. But Rick was, he had great teams and great competitive, and I mean, always big and strong. And that was his run at Washington County. So we had us at Swainsboro, had some great runs with him. Sam Barr, played him some. Just a lot. The guy that he's dead. That was big in the in Georgia Coaches Association. Griffith was at Appling County.
Yeah, Bob Griffith. Yeah,
Bob Griffith. Yeah, big Griff. I mean, he when I was at Swainsboro, it was us and Appling for the region championship 2 or 3 years in a row, and enjoyed competing against him. Coach Daniels, that was over there at Scriven County, won the state championship. Mark Daniels, is that his name? He was a good one. Coach Hosteller was at Bowden, and I think they had they had played for the state championship a couple of years in a row, and around here the news and everything else. Of course, the Bowden people, they were prideful, and they're like, we could beat Carrollton, and Hosteller couldn't find anybody to play. They were so good, and I couldn't get people to play, and so we would do the coaches radio show every Tuesday night together here in Carrollton. And so one year I kept prodding him. I'm like, I said, Coach, you can't find nobody. I can't on this play. He's like, he's Dwight something else. He finally agreed to it. And we beat them those 2 years. They just played for the state championship. One of those years, I think they played for it again. We beat them 44-0 and 43-0. So 87-0 in a 2-year period. He said, we won't be playing no more. So just a different size of schools. They got a great community. Of course, Coach Finley, he interviewed with me one time at Carrollton wanting a job. He's done a great job there. They're on a roll over there. So all those guys, just mutual respect. Everybody does a great job. Just was very blessed to be at the right place at the right time with a lot of great players and a lot of good assistant coaches. Helped us through the years. A lot of good community support for sure.
Well, Coach, you sure won a lot of games and touched a lot of lives. Very, very spiritual man. Always put that out there in front. Never hid behind it. Never never faltered from that. And I know you're still active with FCA and all of that, and touched a lot of lives in that way as well. And just all the things you've done for other coaches and, us younger guys. And I say younger guy, I'm 50 now, but we looked up to you. My generation looked up to you guys, and y'all were legends to us, and really why I want to do this series, and so proud to have you on here, and so glad you took the time to come on and share your story for the young coaches that are out there now, so that they can hear about, one of Henderson's boys.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're only as good as your mentor and the people around you, that's for sure. If we had 3 pillars of my program that we always stuck with, was we were going to get them physically ready to play, mentally ready to play, and spiritually ready to play. And I appreciate you saying that about the Lord. He was obviously there. I had a longtime assistant, Fred Ricks, who's a full-time black pastor, and he was with me in Swainsboro and up here at Carrollton. I can't tell you how many kids that he led to the Lord as part of our football program. And I just believe it matters. It just pleases my heart when I never did Facebook until I retired. But once I retired, I got on it, and I just have thousands and thousands of young men that they're men now, some of them in their 50s and stuff, that I coached. And I just when I see how good a father they are, I see that they've graduated and been successful in life. And then one of my favorite calls of all time, a kid that I coached at Lafayette, I took the job here at Carrollton. It was about 8 years later, and he called me and he said, "Coach, I just want you to know I became an ordained pastor tonight." And, I found the Lord at football camp at Lafayette High School, and Pez Ludi, and he still preaches this day. But it is that's what we do it for. It is a mission field. It's an extracurricular activity. I think coaches need to hear that. I appreciate this young generation of coaches and the stuff that they're having to deal with. I'm too old school. Our slogan here was, as long as women's having baby boys, we're going to win football games. So we didn't cater to any individuals, but nowadays you have to, or those transfer and leave, and you got to facilitate offenses. It was all about the team, and they do a good job. Joey does a good job of managing all that, but it's a crazy day. And I think that my only fear is that we're losing the extracurricular side of high school sports. Now we see it as farm systems. That came from the parents and the kids. I'll transfer. You're building me for the NFL or for college, or, whether it be baseball, basketball. That's not what it's about. They're called extracurricular activities, was why they were established, and that's because they added something it's a curriculum that you can't get in the classroom that you're supposed to get on the field. The teamwork, the loyalty, the academic side of it, the preparation, the perseverance, and all of those things, and pride in a community spirit, community service, all of that stuff. And it's being taken away. They're having it at the college, that transfer portal and everything else. My hat's off to the younger generation of coaches that have to deal with it, but I know what you're dealing with. I know it's not right, and I hate that you have to deal with it, but you got to keep fighting a good fight, because the kids deserve to be given the best regardless. And so you have to become creative and find a way to get those values in there in today's selfish society. I always said the 90s, did it long enough, in the 90s was the first of the me generation. That's where players started talking about what's in it for me. Well, then in the 2000, it became the double me generation. That's because the players of the 90s became parents in the 2000s. So now the child's selfish and the parent. Well, now in the 20s, it's the triple me generation. The grandparents and the parents and the everybody's selfish, and it's not the way it was designed to be for high school athletics, but it's a necessary evil, I guess, to get there. But I wish them well. And I encourage them to keep fighting the good fight. It's important.
Well, Coach, you sure fought the good fight, and I'm so glad you did, and I'm so glad you joined me tonight and shared your story with everybody.
All right, thank you very much.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
When you manage procurement for multiple facilities, every order matters. But when it's for a hospital system, they matter even more. Grainger gets it and knows there's no time for managing multiple suppliers and no room for shipping delays. That's why Grainger offers millions of products in fast, dependable delivery, so you can keep your facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.